June 3rd, 2025. Decided to get out of my comfort zone. Went dancing. I'm not self-conscious when I dance, and I'm pretty good at talking to strangers. I just don't like going out this late at night. Got a blue moon. They didn't serve it with the orange slice. Paid $8 for it. Oh well. I hit the dance floor and purposefully danced badly. Like Doctor Who during Amy Pond's wedding. People start laughing at me. I play into it. Use my signature icebreaker. I make my finger disappear and act all surprised. Afterwards, a group of chicks ask who I am. I motion for them to type their number into my phone, but pulled up is my Sudoku app instead. They each have fun, taking a turn playing a game. One of them is recording everything for a Snapchat story. They're all laughing. I'm good at that. I'm good at being funny. But only when I don't give a shit about who I'm talking to. That's the rule. I don't know why, but that's when the trouble starts. Because when I got my phone back, one of them starts talking to me. She's interested, and now I'm nervous. And when it's time for me to ask for a number, I just freeze. And then it becomes awkward, so I run away. Just sped walked right past her. The group I was with crawled over to a nightclub. Cover charge was expensive, and the bouncer was rude. I didn't have a good time. The dance floor was too crowded, and everything was pirate-themed. I don't like pirate-themed. I didn't even stay long enough to order a drink. Not that I would have gotten one if I wanted to. Like I said, too many people. But still, I had a lot of fun.
I'm afraid.
Afraid of what?
At my age, a lot of things is just, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Isn't that part of the fun, though?
The fun?
Anything could happen. Your life could go in any direction.
It's just, I'd rather have certainty.
But isn't that worse? To see your whole life in front of you? To have it only be one thing?
Huh. What is reading?
Well, let's say reading is using a rule, and that rule is turning letters into sounds. So let's say we're tasked with teaching someone how to read aloud the following excerpt. The cat is on the mat. So we'll teach them the English alphabet, teach them how to pronounce each letter, and after a few hours, we look at the written sentence and say, the cat is on the mat.
But what if they make a mistake? What if they think that on isn't spelled O-N, but rather A-N, so they consistently say the cat is an the mat?
Well, if it's a consistent mistake, they're still following a rule. They're still technically reading, because their rule is that A is O and O is A. It's like someone who thinks that the word granted is pronounced granite, and they say we shouldn't take life for granted. Well, you still know what they're trying to say. Just because they have one additional rule doesn't mean that their words are nonsense.
Okay, but sticking to our example, what if they mistake the letter A for O, and every other time they mistake A for E? So the next time they say on, they pronounce it an, and the next time after that, they pronounce it as N, and after that, they say an again.
Well, there's a discernible pattern here. They say the word N every other time, so they're still following a rule. But at what point does this rule break down? When they say N every 100th time or every 1,000 times? At what point do we call these mistakes versus rules? Once we can no longer express the number of mispronunciations as a mathematical formula? So then let's say that reading is when someone recites something and understands it. When someone says we shouldn't take life for granted, it's not nonsense because we still understand what they're trying to say.
But then the words don't matter. I just continue saying granite instead of granted, even if it's incorrect.
But the words do matter. If someone said we shouldn't take life for blank, and another person said blank, 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 you would be able to guess what the person who said blank, 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 blank was trying to say, but you could guess what the other person was saying.
But that's the thing, I'm still guessing in both cases. I'm no longer reciting and understanding. The last word of the phrase, we shouldn't take life for, is literally omitted. It's not there. I'm not reading that phrase. I'm just understanding it, which makes no sense. How can I guess the meaning of something I read?
But don't we often do that? Take a clock, for example, and let's say it's one of those clocks that have only tick marks on it to indicate the time. And it has exactly 12 marks for 12 hours. Now, we understand the numbers 1 through 12. We know them by heart. But when I look at the tick marks of the clock and tell the time, I'm reading the numbers on the clock. Likewise, we often glaze over emails. We mutter to ourselves what is written inside the email, but once we're done reading, we'll only have actually read a few words. And from those few words, you can guess at what your boss is trying to tell you.
But let's say someone tasked me with reading the word zerpidellum. It's a made-up word, yet you can still read it and say it aloud. I can guess all I like, but I still can't derive any understanding from it. I can recite, but I don't understand. Reading can't be a rule because we still understand people even when they break the rule. But reading can't entirely be based on comprehension either because it allows for guessing and made up words. It's contradictory to say I know what I guess or I know what I make up. I think that's the trouble with a lot of communication.
So a classic goof would be like, Ted gets in here, walks into the bar, and Jacob is already there, and Jacob goes like, there's the man of the hour, so I was last night. Ted goes he gets sort of melancholic. He struggles with excitement. He goes like, fine. You go up to a group of chicks and get each of their numbers, and the night is just fine. And then Ted goes like, I was just doing a joke, a bit. I pull out my phone, pretend to ask for the number. I have my Sudoku app pulled out instead. Then Jacob goes like, and then he scored some digits. And then Ted goes like, no, just says it like a joke, like a goof. So Jacob is fucking baffled, man. He's bewildered. He is bazinga'd his last bazinga. Then he goes, wait, so you didn't get anyone's number? And then Ted goes like, well, I was talking to one of them for a while, but it just didn't feel right. And then Jacob goes like, what? That's insane, incomprehensible, even insuppressible. And then Ted goes like, that's not even a word. Jacob goes, it is now. So what, you didn't get any? And then Ted goes like, yeah, I guess so. Jacob's a bit of a devil's advocate, and he says, see, I knew it. It's because you didn't wear the crop top. And Ted, he goes in his annoyed voice, that classic early 2000s television, like, that I am not wearing a crop top. Jacob goes like, bro, the crop top is the move. Explain to me how that works again? I don't have to, bro. It's a crop top. And then he has to say this very quickly for comedic effect, or else it doesn't land right. So he has to go like, you see, I feel like you just keep telling me to put on crop top, so when I do, you'll take pictures of it and post it online. And then Jacob goes like, what? No. What the? No. What? And post it online. And then Jacob goes like, what? No. What the? No. What?
Lately, I've been struggling to write my opening chapter. It's about a man who has amnesia and is exploring his house for the first time. And for me, I struggle with descriptions, especially when it comes to writing about buildings and environments. I find it difficult to paint a picture for the audience when it's easier to just forego all those details and write witty dialogue instead. So sometimes when I reread my old drafts, it feels like my characters are just casually floating in space while talking to one another. So to help make sense of what I should do, I paid extra attention to some of the books I'm currently reading and sort of looked at how these authors set their scenes. And set the scene is sort of an apt term to use here, because the more that I look at these books, the more I start to see some concepts of cinematography start to form. Now, I don't know if what I'm about to say are actual concepts in the literary world, or if these are just ideas that I came up with in my head. And to start off, we're looking at choreography. Now let's take a look at this excerpt. The 11th apartment had only one closet, but it did have a glass sliding door that opened onto a small balcony, from which he could see a man sitting across the way, outdoors in only a t-shirt and shorts, even though it was October, smoking. Willem held up a hand to greet him. The man then waved back. In the bedroom, Jude was accordioning the closet door, opening and shutting it when Willem came in. Notice how when we imagine this scene, we sort of jump cut from the balcony to the bedroom. The quote-unquote camera just teleports us from one place to another instead of walking in there. Additionally, notice how POV is used. We first see the man across the street from Willem's perspective, and then we're sort of back to a wide shot perspective when we're looking at Jude sliding the bedroom closet door. In this one paragraph, we have a few of the most commonly used mechanisms of a movie: the jump cut, the POV shot, the wide shot. Our imagination skips around 3 times, yet it feels so seamless, which just goes to show how little detail we actually need in order to engage our imagination and create a picture. But speaking of detail, here's one that you probably didn't think of. Where was the bedroom relative to the balcony? Was it on the right side or the left side of the living room? This seems like a huge detail to not know, yet we didn't even bother to ask this question. Instead, we just jump cutted to the bedroom and we were fine with it. This leads me to my second point: reusability. Just like in movies, we don't always get a clear picture of everything. Sometimes the camera just skips around, and while we don't entirely know where we are, there's enough of a linear flow that it feels natural to sort of teleport around. But when would we mention something like the position of the bedroom relative to the living room? Well, the reason why this opening paragraph is so brief is because the two characters were just touring the apartment. This was their first and last time there. But you'll notice that just 14 pages later, there's yet another description of apartment. And this is the one they finally settle on. And I don't have to read out loud to tell you that this description is obviously much more detailed than the previous one. You can tell by just looking at the length of it. And there's directions here. There's a left and right and even a south. We're given an actual floor plan, but why? Well, I sort of like to think of buildings as a simple maze. When you're first teaching your audience how to get to room 1, you say that the character turned left and went forward. But the next time you mention room 1, you can just say that the character went to room 1. You don't have to say left and forward. The audience already knows that. And so not only does this reduce the overall word count, but it also reduces the amount of boring scenes we have within the book. Imagine if every time Jude or Willem went to the kitchen, we had to read about them crossing through the bedroom and living room first. It'd be redundant. It'd be boring. And that's one of the things I've had to learn to balance in my writing, which is how to omit unimportant detail and keeping in important ones as well. Which leads me to my third and final point: omission and hyperfixation. In the opening of chapter 6 of The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky paints a scene of a huge drawing room with silk couches, white wallpaper, rows of mirrors, portraits of a bishop and a governor, along with lamps and religious icons in the corner. And this entire time I've been talking about how we ought to reduce word count, that we ought to keep what is essential and to keep things simple. But what if you want to build quote-unquote personality? When I look at this excerpt and its overall length, we may be tempted to say that it's chock full of redundancies. Or what about this excerpt from Norwegian Wood that's describing a small dorm room? It's much longer than that of Dostoevsky's description of the drawing room. And consider that Norwegian Wood is a modern piece, yet it takes 2 pages for the modern piece to describe a small dorm room, while the classical piece only needed 1/3 of the space to describe a much larger room. So what's going on here? What's going on is that the dorm room is being described with ample context surrounding the main character's situation. not only is he talking about the room, but he's talking about his parents who have paid for it, about the view the window has, about his desire to live in a more isolated space rather than with a roommate. The author is adding personality, and oftentimes it has the appearance of filler, or at least it does to me. If I'm being honest, learning about other people is just work. It's asking all the seemingly unimportant questions and memorizing all the facts that don't lead to anywhere profound. People are much more than their hobbies, jobs, and families. We're all unique in so many different little ways. Some people don't like pineapple, others do. Some people naturally fart loudly, while others don't. Some people have dry faces, while others have dry hands. Some people will naturally whistle their S's, while others omit their V's. Some people prefer flossing with string rather than with the picks. And some people are okay with eating kale, but hate eating lettuce. I don't know if you've noticed this, but these are the quirks that make a person a person. It's been years since I've watched Naruto, yet I still remember that the orange-haired dude likes ramen. Like, those who are close to you will always remember the weirdest things about you, but that's what made them close to you in the first place. So whenever I write about a small or boring detail, sometimes I do so out of necessity. Otherwise, the places that I talk about or the people that I describe, they'd all lose this luster to them, this feeling of human connection. Overall, writing doesn't require a whole lot of attention to detail due to flaws in our imagination, yet they do also require attention to detail in order to preserve some quality of humanity within the work. Likewise, detail is necessary in creating a proficient enough mental map for everyday spaces like the home of the main character or their work. Anyways, that's the end of the video.